Welcome to Manhwa Nirvana. If you enjoy our videos, please like and subscribe. It really helps keep me motivated. Now, let's dive in. Our story starts with Chrono Life, another world? The hottest new continent is now open. When you connect to another world, the first thing that awaits you is 100 million new users, meeting wonderful companions and conquering dungeons with them. At least that's what the developers of this game claimed. System alert. A character has been created. Welcome, King Ji-sok player. After hearing the greeting from the system, the protagonist stood still for a few seconds and stared off into the distance. Undoubtedly, the vistas of the new continent are breathtakingly beautiful. However, something is not right here. Why isn't anyone here? Where do all those promised 100 million new users go? What is that thing he's holding? A shovel? Not understanding what the developers wanted him to do with this item, King Ji-sok stabbed the shovel in the ground. In that same second, the dirt beneath his feet glowed with bright blue light. Suddenly, a huge block of earth flew into the air. What a performance made the guy literally petrified by it. The block fell with a clatter next to his feet. And Ji-sok, still standing in shock for a moment, looked at the thing perplexing. What is the hell of this? How do I get into the wrong game? He thought, not knowing what else to expect from this crazy piece of dirt. The guy decided to poke the block lightly with a shovel. What do you think? And then there was a small explosion. What did it mean? What are the pieces of dirt that disappeared before Ji-sok's eyes, appearing in his inventory at the same time? It seems like the authors of Chrono Life simply nicked the basic mechanics from the most popular game of mankind, wanting to see if a similar thing would work with something else. Ji-sok ran to the nearest tree, and just as he hit the trunk with the shovel, a piece broke off from the tree and fell into his inventory. Immediately afterward, the system notified the player that a new crafting item was available. In the window that appeared in front of him, the user was asked to make a chair from a single piece of wood. Is it going to be that easy? There's no way a chair can be created with just one click. After thinking about it, Ji-sok confirmed the craft. At the same time, a wooden chair began to materialize right in front of him. The chair was created, and the block of wood disappeared from the player's inventory. Settling back in his chair, Ji-sok laughed merrily, and remarked that this mechanic was rather unusual. His mirth did not last long. For very soon, he realized that he was alone. Where did he really go from? Is this really Chrono Life? Wasn't this game supposed to be a game where you kill monsters and level up? System alert, the crafting skill level has increased. Why? More items for crafting are available to the King Ji-sok player. Sitting back in his chair in despair, is he alone? Ji-sok opened the craft menu. A few more things appeared among the items he could create. This means that this game still has some semblance of skill and level. Now a guy can make a wooden club, a sword, and even a goddamn siege catapult. What? And that wasn't all. In the list of all those items, Ji-sok noticed something he wanted to do first. After cutting more trees and gathering other materials, he chose the right blueprint and began to put blocks in the places indicated by the game. Finishing the job, the guy exhaled with relief. Now his house is finished. Incidentally, the gameplay turned out to be not as dull as he originally envisioned it to be. Sure, the interior of his new home left a lot to be desired, but after all it was his first job. Satisfied with himself, King Ji-sok lay down on the bed he had recently made. This world wasn't so bad, and the beds here are quite comfortable. It's much cozier here than King Gisoka's real home. Well, that's to be expected. The guy himself lives in a small apartment in South Korea. Miracles happen to those who try. Your efforts will never betray you. Conquer yesterday's self. All these motivational phrases kept Gisoka working day in and day out, and eventually turned his life into a gray, dull routine. But today, going into Chrono Life, the guy felt as if all the worries of work days left him very quickly. Looking at the shovel in his hand, Gisoka thought about the possibilities in this world for him. The house is 100 square meters, or maybe a 2-story house with a courtyard. He can build whatever he wants and live however he wants. That's when he realized that this world is truly beautiful. Gisok thought so until a beastly roar came from behind the front door. Turning his head, he saw an extremely ferocious lion bear with a danger level standing on the doorstep. This was the first time the guy had seen monsters like this. While he was wondering what he should do next, the beast roared and pounced on him. By some miracle, Jisoku had already managed to jump aside and avoid being hit by the monster's claws. But unfortunately, it was not without losses. His favorite soft bed had been blown to splinters. He wasn't going to let that bastard get away with such insolence. "You're a dead man," Jizik said, fiercely pointing the shovel at the enemy. "For this homunculus bear destroying someone else's property, he will pay with his life." And by his life, I meant specifically Jinsok's life. Kids, don't play with predatory animals in your home. Otherwise, you will fly into the stratosphere, just like this fool who decided to bash a bear with a shovel. Obviously, Jizik is stepped back out of range as he lands a nice leg kick. After losing a few experience points, he was immediately revived to safety. That's when it finally dawned on him that he was too damn weak. Looking around, the boy tried to find his home. To his dismay, only ruins remained of his little cottage. Both bed and chair died of brave death and unequal combat with the monster. In tears, hugging what was left of his wooden chair, Jizik fell to his knees and screamed that just killing him would be enough. Why the hell did that bloody bear have to destroy the house he'd worked so hard to build? Well, the bastard's going to be back here sooner or later. Jizik doesn't know how yet, but he will definitely get revenge on that soulless bear. It's been hours. Walking through his domain, the lion bear once again saw a small cottage standing in the middle of a field. With a satisfied roar, the monster burst into the hut through the wall at full speed. Once inside, however, the bear froze with hopelessness. "Welcome to the club, buddy," Jizik whispered ominously, pointing the siege machine's guns at the intruder. The next second yanked the lever. Dozens of sharp spears pierced the monster's thick skin, but it wasn't enough to kill the enemy. Being pinned with spears as if he were a dartboard target, the lion bear rushed towards the protagonist, and it was for just such an occasion that Jizik recently created a catapult. This little bear has a lot of persistence, but he won't be able to take such a blow. The projectile flew at great speed into the monster's face, knocking out all its teeth. As expected, the enemy did not survive the encounter between his skull and the enormous rock. Bringing the shovel to the breathless body of the beast, Jizik decided to first make sure that it would not come back to life. As soon as the tip of the shovel touched the bear's fur, a bright blue light formed again, the reward for defeating a danger level. A monster was 1 piece of meat, 2 lion bear skins and 5 bones. And that's not all. In the crafting menu, the maximum brutal helmet and lion bear armor became available to the player. Now, Jizik knows that killing monsters is quite lucrative, and so he decides to go hunting. However, he had no idea that he would become not the hunter, but the prey. No sooner had he closed the craft menu than someone's shadow fell on him. Turning around behind him, the guy saw hordes of giant creatures. Their meeting ended as quickly as it had begun, and so Jizik dies for the 4th time, then the 12th and so on. On the 49th time, the monsters burned down his house and sent the guy flying again. On his 118th death, he finally began to doubt. He understands why these creatures are trying to kill him. But why would they destroy perfectly good cabins time after time? Jisoku has to rebuild his huts from scratch after each death. It all makes me think these guys are deliberately trying to piss him off. Since that's the case, they didn't get what they wanted at all. Did they really think they'd get Jizik out of the game that way? No, now they've pissed him off enough that there's no way he's leaving here. Time after time, he'll be reborn, but he'll still kill all those freaks sooner or later. And so the time of the 1000th rebirth came, hoping to tear apart the pitiful player's small hut once again. The monsters came across a structure of monstrous proportions. The high-peaked building was poked on all sides with guns of all kinds. And on the highest point of the peak, the main character sat on a throne. With a menacing expression on his face, after explaining to the monsters that they wouldn't pull a fight with him, King Jizik ordered them to bring their boss to him. At the same moment, he heard the howl of a flying beast nearby. With its mouth wide open, the creature was about to devour its victim, just as suddenly a laser beam pierced through the flying monster, tearing its body into pieces. That shot was a warning to the rest of the hostiles. If they don't rush into action now, they'll just be shot one by one. But why are they just standing still and not moving? Are you afraid? Jizik inquired ominously, smiling hotly. This self-assured speech provoked an army of monsters. They rushed into battle, but at the same second most of them were killed by the castle's defensive guns. Some still managed to break through the barrage of fire. Crashing into the wall at full speed, they began trying to punch through it. Their attempts only elicited laughter from Jisoka. He purposely let some monsters get close enough to burn them with flamethrowers. The battlefield has become a living hell. The remnants of the monsters, realizing the hopelessness of the situation, began to try to escape from this scorcher. But the boss didn't appreciate the cowardice of these pathetic fools. His name is Granterus, and he is the boss of the monsters of the other world. Danger level GOAT. Anyone who dared turn his back on the enemy, he crushed with his huge paws. Granterus has reappeared in front of him, and this time Jizik expects to stop him for good. In turn, the monster boss himself was sure that Jizik was hopeless. No matter how tall or massive his build, there was no way he could stop Granterus from breathing. Charging the attack, the boss released the flaming jet at full power. That's it. Jisok's voice came as the fire went out. Granterus said earlier that it doesn't matter how tall or massive the structure is. He said that supposedly nothing could resist his breath. He only thought so because he had never before encountered something as massive as what Jizik had constructed. Compared to this giant, Granterus was just a small lizard. The outcome was a natural outcome. Granterus was flattened by a single blow from that fucking Decepticon's fist, rumbling, rumbling, it's coming, rumbling, rumbling. What's going on in this manhwa? How did we go from Minecraft to Gurren Lagann on steroids? Having defeated the much-hated monster boss himself, Jizik left the cockpit of his gammon. Dropping to the ground, the boy brought the shovel up to the dead creature's torso. A lot of new items immediately appeared in his inventory. 10 Granterus skins, an eye, 2 fangs, a heart, 6 drops of blood, and other crap you won't hear about again. The main reward for Jizik in this battle was acquiring the Yet 6X title. His fame began to spread throughout the other world. In addition to this, the ruler of the other world also changed. Granterus was killed and was replaced by King Jizik. Beings from another world will no longer dare to challenge the new ruler. However, this is not the end at all. Since Jisoka has the privilege of ownership and can now control everything in the world of Chrono Life. This is just the beginning for him. From now on he can do absolutely anything. Meanwhile, in the domain of a former lord of another world, the 7 Legion commanders had already received an alert from the system that Lord Granterus was dead. Commander Doro initially wanted to send an investigative team to verify the facts, but he was quickly changed his mind. The system can't go wrong, and so the monsters must prepare for war. The creatures were about to summon all reserves when suddenly a powerful vibration sounded. They couldn't mistake those footsteps for anything else. Lord Granterus arrived at his domain, thus greatly surprising his minions. After bowing before the Lord, Doro, the Legion commander, reported that they were just about to send their warriors out for revenge. So you are all gathered here? An unfamiliar voice was heard from Granterus's mouth. Looking up, the Legion commanders found that their lord looked somehow unusual. So you guys are the ones who have been killing and torturing me all the time? Everything I've done, everything I've built. You're the ones who destroyed it all. The guy with the shovel said creepily, opening the eye socket of the machine. Aiming dozens of laser cannons at his victims. Gasok noted that each of them deserved exactly the same fate. Without even listening to the monster's objections, he coldly ordered them to shut up and accept their plight. The likeness of Granterus's fiery breath sizzled the former lord's domain in the same instant. Soon the ground cooled and there was silence. Once down to earth, King Gasok began mining for valuable minerals. By the way, meet the commander of the 7th Legion of the Granterus army, loyal to Doro. This dude will be the main character's pet from now on. Asking the boss if he was tired, Doro offered to help him. Saying that he could do it himself, Gasok pointed out that Doro used to be bigger. How had he survived anyway? The Beastman in turn revealed that he could regenerate even with a part of his body, though he was getting smaller and weaker. And when Gasok said that in that case he would have no trouble finishing him off, Doro tearfully begged to be spared. As he continued to place blocks of minerals beneath him, the protagonist decided to ask the Legion General something. He wondered why the hell these guys were trying to kill him. In response, Doro apologized several times. In fact, one day the creator visited them and gave them a revelation. After ordering to eliminate King Gasok, he disappeared, surprised by such a story. The protagonist asked why the creator would want to get into a fight with a regular user. Would it be in a hive understand the beekeeper's mind? Hee. Doro whispered haughtily, then fell silent when he heard Gasak say that he was being too smug for someone who could be crushed by a finger. Be that as it may, Doro doesn't know if there is a way to meet the creator, and so he is unable to find out the real reason either. Incidentally, the beast also had one question at this point. What exactly do you do? Doro inquired. King Gasak explained with a chuckle that he wanted to do something, and so he decided to build a tower. Pointing his finger upward, he added that he had always wanted to be there at least once. His goal is to get to the moon. It sounds like fun, and isn't it interesting what's in there? Doro in turn shouted that this was nonsense. The relative motion of the star in the moon's orbit, supporting the weight of the rising tower, surviving in the vacuum of space. Too many factors make it impossible. However, Gasak explained that his little friend was thinking superficially. He's going to go there because the moon is there. It's about romance. And besides, it's just a game, so somehow his tower idea will work. Stunned by the stupidity of his logic and the ineptitude of his cause and effect, Doro finally realized that the dude was a complete idiot. They're doomed, but now the brute has no choice but to pretend to serve this jerk as a master. And when the opportunity presents itself, he will surely destroy it. It's been a full day. King Gasak and his little buddy continued building the tower. Doro would carry the mineral blocks upstairs to the boss, and the protagonist himself would put them in the right places. Occasionally they would pause to coordinate the drawing of the tower for its greater stability. Day after day passed. Once Doro was even almost carried away by a huge bird flying by. Oh yes, they also slept at the top of this tower. And while they slept, they were protected by the late Grand Tourist Golem. By the way, these two remind me of myself when I first played Minecraft. Unlike them though, I never managed to make it to Earth's exosphere. It had already gotten cold up there, so they had to craft themselves some winter clothing. But even in spite of all these difficulties, if you think about it that way, during the days of uninterrupted work, these two have become quite good friends. All these events could not pass the eye of the creator. Of course, trying to get to the moon seemed foolish to him as well. Still, it's something interesting. The creator doesn't want to disappoint such a dedicated player at all. So when he gets to the moon, there will be an interesting event waiting for him. Soon King Gasak achieved his goal. Doro and his newfound boss donned spacesuits and stepped onto the surface of the moon. That's one small step for man. One giant leap for entire Minecraft community. Gasak never thought he would one day feel something like this. But who was even more shocked was Doro. Screaming at the top of his lungs with joy, he couldn't believe they had actually succeeded. They sure as hell did build a tower of blocks from the Earth to the moon. Taking a seat, the two looked at the most enormous pencil ever built in Minecraft, and remarked on how awesome a sight it was. In fact, Doro had never seen something like this in his life, and therefore had no idea that the view from the moon was so beautiful. The general thanked Gasak for showing it to him. Once on his feet, the protagonist suggested that we stop resting and start searching for lunar materials. At the same time, some rumbling noise was heard. You came all this way to die. Blue Planet Scum growled menacingly at the monster that appeared before them. This creature is called a blood-crazed moonlight rabbit. Its threat level is SS. Well, there was a lot of pathos from this little bunny, but it flew off into the next world from one blow. All this dude could do was scare Gasak and his companion a little. Doro didn't even have time to realize it. Where his boss got this mechanical thing from. As it turned out, the rabbit survived after all. Raising his head, he roared that none of the scum from the blue planet were coming back alive. The sounds coming from his mouth nearly deafened the protagonist and his friend. As it turned out, this hare called out to his companions. Now this whole situation was beginning to resemble something resembling a problem. Very quickly, the rabbit surrounded the two friends. Gasak began trying to fight off his opponents, but one mechanical claw was clearly not enough. Looking behind the boss's efforts to resist the crowd of rabbits, Doro realized that they had come unprepared for a large-scale battle. But the Legion General noticed that these monsters were only attacking this person and not paying attention to him. Realizing that this was his chance, the beast decided to return to the planet. However, when he remembered the tower, it was as if something stopped him. As he shifted his gaze to Earth, He remembered exactly who had given him this stunning view. That he would never forget. Meanwhile, Gasak continued to fight off the hordes of monsters. Suddenly, one of the rabbits discovered the guy's blind spot and attacked him from the back. At the same second, a certain projectile at a tremendous speed pierced through him. It turned out to be Doro, who after finishing off the enemy, landed next to his boss. A surprise, Gasak said that he thought the Legion General was going to escape. Doro, in turn, explained that he would not leave his master alone as he was grateful for him showing him something beautiful. And before the mob of rabbits pounced on them, the protagonist said he liked his partner's attitude. After a moment, the monsters piled their entire weight on top of the two of them. Doro already thought it was the end, but as he opened his eyes, he noticed he was safe. As he flew away from the monsters on the Power Moon suit, Gasak noticed that Doro had also gotten a taste of the romance he was talking about. He passed the test, so there's no reason for the guy to hold back anymore. His power suit has many tools with which he will destroy all those frumpy rabbits. Extending his arm forward, Gasak unleashed the power of the suit on his enemies with an eerie smile. Sometime later, sitting on the moon and looking at the earth, the two friends clinked their drinking glasses. As they each drank a glass of the unknown beverage, Doro asked his boss if that was his original purpose. Gasak, in turn, explained that the idea of labeling the moon with his name came to him in the process. In fact, they spent quite a lot of time drawing out those letters. Doro wondered why his master was playing this game and doing such a chore. Then looking at the planet again, Gasak explained that it was fun. Where else would he be able to admire the Earth while sitting on the moon? As soon as the guy thought about it, their admiration of the view was interrupted by some sort of purple aura. As it turned out, there was an explosion of incredible power on the ground. A huge chunk of another world's planet disappeared in a matter of seconds. Looking at it all, Doro couldn't believe that his favorite planet was almost half destroyed. Closing the power suit's visor, Gasak ordered his partner to stay here. He himself immediately rushed in the direction from which the explosion had come. It all happened so fast that Doro didn't even have time to say anything to him. What the hell is going on? Who could blow the planet to pieces? Meanwhile, King Gasak had already reached the surface. Enraged by the fact that his buildings could have been destroyed, he vowed to kill whoever had done it all. Once on the ground, he removed his power suit and attempted to call out to the Grand Tourist Golem. To his dismay, he couldn't feel the signal from the golem anywhere at all. After running a little farther, he finally saw Grand Tourist. More specifically, he saw what was left of him. The golem was even stronger than the last lord of this world. Who had the strength to defeat him? As soon as the guy thought about it, someone's voices were heard behind him. Boss, there's someone alive left here," came the voice of a squeaky creature. Pointing his finger at the weapon in Gasak's hand, the mysterious man laughed. "What kind of a freak walks around here with a shovel?" However, Eurus, flying next to her boss, noticed that he himself walks with a wooden stick. Not that big of a difference between the two. This man possesses the strongest custom weapon of the Chrono Life world. 99 times reinforced wooden stick, but that didn't bother King Gasak. Now he wanted to know who the bastard was, and how dare he mess up his property. Well, let's fight begin. Chrono Life's strongest user with the plus 99 reinforced wooden stick. His name is Peace. King Gasak didn't recognize them. He hadn't seen any of the other players yet. Looking at the broken Grand Tours, the guy realized it was the work of this weirdo with a stick. And then there's the tower he worked so long and hard to build. To get to the moon and experience true romance. Everything. It was all ruined, and for what? Who the hell is he after what he's done? Obviously a pervert wearing nothing but underwear. Gasak is enraged. He advises the pervert to prepare to answer for his actions. Eurus, the creature that accompanied the boy, appreciated the joke about the pervert, and mocked his master in every possible way. The guy with the stick grinned, finding it funny that Gasak didn't know who was standing in front of him. Peace had a long way to go, and he still had a lot to accomplish. But Gasak would find out soon enough. Peace takes off abruptly and rushes towards Jisoku. If King Gasak doesn't know what kind of person is in front of him, he will have to pay for his ignorance. Peace gets in close to his opponent looking to strike. The attack of the wooden stick was incredibly strong. But Gasak managed to dodge it with his spacesuit. He was very dangerous. The last blow took out the left engine. Peace praised his opponent for his speed. The guy has a lot to answer for. He pulls out his whole new arsenal of alien weaponry again. Luna missile attack in action. Many shells of different caliber and one salvo headed for Peace. The guy found such a ridiculous title amusing. Well, my opponent has something to show for it too. Peace lands a sprawling uppercut that lifts the stone blocks into the air. Gasok sees the approaching rocks and tries to make an emergency evacuation as a matter of urgency. Seconds before the guy leaves his spacesuit that took the hit. Falling to the ground, the guy calls on his next creation for help. King's castle bursts out of the bowels of the earth. Peace is surprised by the appearance of a huge walking castle. With abrupt movements, King's lock starts hitting the spot where Peace was standing. Eurus was horrified, his master disappearing from sight. Meanwhile, Dora watches from the moon. The dinosaur hopes his master is doing well. King's castle presses his huge hand into a single point. He's still not managing to pin his opponent to the ground though. Peace lands a left single left to hold off the onslaught of a walking headlock. Gasok can't believe his eyes. This guy is blocking everything with a wooden stick. Now it's time for Peace to show what he can do. The pervert climbs up the giant's arm very quickly. He's obviously up to something incredible. In the blink of an eye, Peace is over the head of a walking castle. Gasok sees his opponent hovering over his fortress. Downward strike, shouted Peace, delivering a devastating blow. Judging by the look on his face, Peace noticed something strange. A multitude of cubes appear in the air. First dozens, then hundreds. Thousands and tens of thousands of cubes appear in space. Gasok uses his tool to create an entire army. An army of cubes of all kinds. All thanks to his shovel. A barrier of 1 million cubes was created in seconds. A superior defense against a superior offense. Gasok is trying to figure out who this guy is who has such inhuman power. Peace is surprised too. That kid with the shovel is not a shy one. But we need to call it a day. The pervert is tired of playing with it. Peace breaks through the barrier of blocks at breakneck speed. And approaches Jisoku. Shovel versus wooden stick. A collision is inevitable. Which will be stronger? Which tool owner will prevail in this fight? The force of the juxtaposition of these blows was visible from open space. The whole planet shook from this battle. Pieces of Earth scattered in all directions of outer space. An entire planet was split into two halves. After a short time, Eurus finally found his master. Eurus was impressed. The guy had managed to destroy an entire world. Maybe the developers should have built it stronger. Suddenly, Peace saw something he didn't expect to see. The shovel glowed bright blue flame in the owner's hands. How did Gasok survive something like that? King Gasok stood on one of the pieces of land in open space. He could barely breathe. The guy didn't want to give up. He called the pervert's names and teased him again. But unfortunately, either from fatigue or lack of air, Gasok lost consciousness. That shovel looked very suspicious. The guy had such a strange weapon. He's clearly not an ordinary player. Who he really is, Peace wondered. Suddenly, a huge crack appeared. Two people came out of it, a man and a woman. The CEO of Chronolife is Choi Dokbae. And his as yet unknown companion. Dokbae was not happy that the guy had destroyed another planet again. Peace addressed the man as his grandfather and asked him what he was doing here. The man asked the guy the same question. At that moment, the girl noticed another unconscious user and headed towards him. While the girl was trying to bring the guy to his senses, Peace asks if this beauty is the grandfather's granddaughter. Lifting the guy up slightly, the brunette continues to try to find out Gasok's condition. She asks him to show more perseverance. After all, she was the one who worked hard on making the guy stronger, even though I had to kill him throughout the game. This is such a caring support service. Or to be more precise, another world lead developer, Yuri. The guy barely understands what she's saying. But it was very painful. Gasok lost consciousness again. The most important thing is that he's alive. The rest can be fixed. A girl kisses a guy right on the lips. Now that must be the romance Gasok was talking about. Moments later, their lips were once again burned by the emptiness of open space. Pleasant dreams, my dear user. After a while, Doro tries to wake up his master. Slapping the guy on the cheek, he manages to cheer him up. Gasok rises abruptly and screams that he was hurt. Holding his head, the guy tries to remember what happened. Suddenly, he starts remembering moments that happened recently. A shattered world, a shockwave that ripped the planet apart. But all of that is gone now. Everything is intact and harmless. Doro happily threw his arms around Gasak. He was glad to see the master in good health. A little embarrassed, he said he was actually worried about himself. And how he would have to live on the moon. Judging by the fact that Doro was around, that means Gasak is on the moon. Nervously running around the dinosaur checks to see if all of the Lord's limbs are intact. Gasak felt great despite fighting a very strong opponent. Though he remembers being badly wounded in battle with him. Gasak asks to tell all the things that happened after he passed out. Doro will gladly tell you everything he saw. The first thing that happened was that the land was divided into two parts. Then an unknown voice began to come from a huge spatial crack. The human silhouette asked to remain alert and calm down. The girl brought the unconscious guy straight to the moon. She reassured Doro by saying that the guy was perfectly fine and just needed time to recover. She used a healing spell to save his life. It was a very powerful spell. Doro inquired as to who was to blame for all of this. Is the creator? Are these all her antics? Yuria was flattered that Doro remembered who she was. But it wasn't her doing. It was all the other users' fault. Player piece with the +99 reinforced wooden stick. He crossed over from Chrono Life's main server. The strongest being in this universe. Another world has been protecting new users. With a system barrier that blocks main server users from entering. Until it was shattered by the +99 reinforced wooden stick. He shattered the barrier in one crushing blow. He's returned to his original world now, but peace will come back. The peace of this world will be threatened again. All of this is for Gasak to find out when he wakes up. The creator expects great things from this guy. He has to prove himself from all sides and accomplish a lot. After finishing his speech, Yuria rebuilds the destroyed planet. A tremendous energy presses down on both halves of the globe. It all looks like the making of a supernova. The dust settled and Doro tried to open his eyes. His surprise was indescribable. The planet has been fully restored. Doro looked around, but the creator had disappeared as soon as her presence was no longer needed. The magical barrier has also been restored. That's the way it was while Gasak lay passed out. After listening carefully to his acolyte, the lad hesitated. The guy is morally lost in himself. He was too arrogant. Being called the ruler of another world made him think he was invincible. He thought it was rather pathetic. Once again, he couldn't defend anything. Doro reassured the Lord after all he had survived the battle against the strongest player. Which already meant he had fought well. Strange, since the guy pretty much only blocked punches and didn't attack back. All thanks to that weird shovel. How was he able to block this with it? She was able to withstand the strongest weapon. But because even an entire world was destroyed. Gasak held out the shovel to Doro and asked if he knew what materials the shovel was made of. But Doro's just a dinosaur. He doesn't know anything about minerals. But he has an idea who does. When it comes to minerals, it's the dwarves. They live together in Nelvin Mine. Dwarves good at crafting, mining, jewelry making. They can do it all. If that's really the case, Gasak intends to find them as soon as possible. After opening the inventory window, Gasak uses the crafting skill. Even though Doro doesn't know where the mine is, he has a plan to find it. The fastest and most proven method is to search for a high altitude. By clicking the Create button, the necessary resources began to connect at one point. It's time to accelerate to achieve certain goals. That +99 pervert who destroyed his home should get a decent fight back. And this mystery girl, she just needs to wait a little while. Wait for him to gain the kind of power that no lousy player can match. No one goes unpunished. Gasak is sure to repay the favor. Another world, Dark Island. The skeleton army fights in numerical superiority. They are facing 4 high-level players. One user destroys more than 5 skeletons in a single attack. Joachim is a 49 Latvian Laches warrior. The guy is glad that there are a lot of skeletons and it won't be boring like last time. A red-haired girl armed only with a shield smashes the bones of skeletons into dust and ashes. Peach Shield. Warrior 42 Latvian Laches. The girl notices that although there are many skeletons, they are all terribly weak. A guy with animal ears, inciting a girl. Maybe it's easy for her because she's a monster herself. Foxter is a 41 Latvian Laches thief. And the final player of this squad is Grace, a 45 Latvian Laches mage. Grace seemed to think that the difficulty level was lowered specifically for new players. This was a very reasonable decision, because if the monsters will be very strong, the influx of new players should not be expected. And the guys pumped up faster than the developers expected. Could it be that the server is run by some amateurs? Because recently the server even managed to crash. Foxter thought their squad was the strongest on the server. But Joachim thought those words were highly presumptuous. Suddenly Grace noticed something. Something large was approaching them through the air. The players kept a close eye on the unidentified flying object. Visibility was very poor, but with every second the object was getting closer and its outline was more and more visible. The boys are hoping they've been caught by an unknown monster. Joachim thinks that this monster is clearly unlucky to meet their squad very first. The group is ready to speed up the landing of the object and possibly get special achievements for eliminating it. Meanwhile, in the cockpit of Grand Tourist's head, Jizik is overjoyed. They have finally reached their destination. The mines are almost there. But Doros says it's just a skeleton residence. While in Grand Tourist's head, Doros can't believe he agreed to the idea. You still don't get it? It's about romance, Jizik said, smiling broadly. Jizik was glad that they had managed to find Grand Tourist's head. At that moment, a pitiful whisper of "kill me" was heard. Looking out the window, the guy noticed the live users below. He wasn't alone in this world after all. Looking from top to bottom, it was obvious that the group was ready for battle or fighting someone. A bright flash of light blinded Jisoka and Doros. Multiple ground attack directed at an unidentified flying object. Jizik hadn't expected such a warm welcome from the other players. Each of the squad tried to attack the target at range, except for Pete's shield. Looking at her comrades, the red-haired girl decided to try her hand at strength as well. She swung her shield to throw it properly. Huge rotational force along with the strongest throw should break through the monster's defense the first time. But the shield just bounces off Jisok's flying machine. All their attacks are no more powerful than raindrops hitting a window. Jizik can't understand why they are so weak. Maybe it's just the newbies. After the battle with that guy in his underpants, the difference is felt tremendously. Doros asks the gentleman what they will do with this group of players. Will they just let them go? There's no way Jizik wants to let them go since they attacked first. The guy has to settle the score. King Jizik turns to Grantharus and orders that the attackers be punished. Fire a volley of cannon fire, wipe them out. A group of players noticed the jaws of an unknown monster began to open. Grantharus loads his gun to strike back. Looking at what is happening, Joachim feels a great deal of trouble. Mecha beam. 3 of the squad take a direct hit. It was the first time they had encountered something like this. Joachim looks on in horror at his defeated comrades. It was incredible. Just one attack took down 3 members of one of the strongest squads. Jizik saw one survivor. It had better take the first hit. But now to fire on target until there was a direct hit on the last target. Mecha and 10 times more mecha beams. Grantharus unleashes a large number of beams in the direction of the last adventurer on his playful sciatic support. The earth was engulfed in flames. It was impossible to see what was happening. Somehow miraculously Joachim was managing to dodge the death rays. But it didn't last long and eventually all targets were hit. After landing, Jizik and Doro came out to look around. Joachim lay unconscious. Not even the sword from Weapon Maker could help him deal with the looming threat. Doro didn't understand why they'd landed, since there was no one here to ask for directions to the mines. Unless Jizik resurrected the ancient skeletons and learned the way from them. The boy liked the idea. This could very well work. Jizik would love to try his hand at a new endeavor. He touched bones and skulls with his shovel, gathering materials from them. The first resource gathering task was a success. Immediately afterward, a window appeared with the ability to craft new recipes. The activation conditions were very strange, but it was very interesting. Jizik will now be able to create powerful skeletons, depending on combinations of their resources. The boy was excited to experiment with his new abilities. Especially since there are tons of resources out there for creating anything you could ever want. After a while, the guy creates something small and bony. So another bone creature that resembles a dog. The guy named his puppy Bengaji, and now he has many other friends. Doro asks the guy to speed up and stop messing around. They don't have time for games. Suddenly, the guy was interested in another system message, a special creation, given the opportunity to create something special. Since the guy created over 100 unique models, he got the opportunity to create something incredibly rare. Smiling slightly, Jizik said he had something like that in mind. Without thinking another minute, the guy hits the create button. Huge bones began to come together. Jizik and his friends watch with open mouths. It was something unthinkable. The boy and Doro were very frightened by what they saw. To the triumphant explosions of fireworks, Jisok's new servant appeared. He greeted his master. The 7-star skeleton was created using an epic creature. The Lich King himself has sworn allegiance to Jisoku. The undead king bows his knee and asks his master to give him a name. Doro is in a panic. This creature doesn't like him at all. This skeleton could be big trouble. The Lich King is the most cunning and evil monster. He would never submit to anyone. But Jizik had already made up his mind. Henceforth, the name of this creature is Pigudik. Despite Doro's misgivings, Jizik is pleased with his new servant. He seems obedient and he's sure he'll do well. Lich thanks his master for the name and asks to know his master's first will. Of course, Jizik immediately asked if Pigudik knew where the Nelvin mine was. Doro wanted to say something, but the Lich King immediately interrupted him. Because he really knows where it is. Jizik asks to escort them there immediately. Lich, ready to follow orders, he pulled out his bloody dagger a few moments ago. The two seemingly ordinary instruments came into contact. A bright flash illuminated the dark forests of another world. The moment the planet split apart, a stream of unprecedented energy rushed into outer space. Moments later, the game developer restored everything as it was. Many people did not understand what had happened on the server. They looked up into the sky, and they saw something that no one had ever been able to see. It wasn't just regular users who saw this. The various monsters that inhabit the planet have also noticed the signs. Even the inhabitants of the sea depths were surfacing to see the unimaginable in person. Some of the royalty regarded the incident with surprise. It was actually quite amusing. Could this have been the message of another world's new host? User and others, those who covet the position of another world's ruler. That was a pretty catchy statement though. By all who witnessed the words carved on the moon, he shall be known as the day of King's Advent. Let's get back to our hero. They are ready for the journey to Nelvin Mine. But Jizik forgot something. He wants to do something for afterward. The boy turned around sharply and addressed the undead king. At that moment, the Lich hit his dagger behind his back. Guy thinks it's time for a change, and the skeletons don't need to hide anymore. King Leech doesn't understand what Jizik means. The boy explains that they can't just leave these lands. After all, there's still plenty to do, and Dark Highland needs a good shake-up. Meanwhile, Leech still hides his dagger out of Jisok's sight. The guy offers to stay a little longer and start an important case in his opinion. The Godok doesn't understand what the man is getting at. Meeting glances, Jizik asks everyone to get ready. Safety first. King Leech immediately finds himself in a construction worker's uniform. Jizik decided to build the safest living space possible. They can build it in a short time if they join forces. Their target is a fortress tower. You need to collect a lot of weapons so that no one can get close. It's up to them to take care of their own safety. All the skeletons are jubilant and excited about new ideas. King Leech still stands bewildered at what is happening. Make skeletons great again. After a while, King Leech tosses his dagger. Catching it once again, he swings it with all his might. To cut the red ribbon, the construction of the Dark Tower has been ceremonially completed. It was truly a magnificent job. Jizik looked at Doro and asked him to perform one last safety test. Doro was clearly not eager to do it again, but the Lord's word was above his wishes. Targeting the intruder, Doro turns slowly toward the tower. Within seconds, the target was identified and destroyed. The final test was successfully passed. Jizik could now continue his journey with peace of mind. If an enemy appears that they can't handle, they should send out a laser signal and run away. When they see him, Jizik will surely come to their aid. After petting Bayonaji goodbye, Jizik asked him to keep a proper eye on their new home. There are no more tasks for Jizik here, and they are going to follow to Nelvin Mine. They get on the motorcycle and say goodbye to everyone once more. It was quite an exciting adventure in the Dark Island. Now it's time to follow to the main mission. Doro asked why they had switched to another vehicle and left Grand Thuris behind. Jizik explained that it was too slow and clumsy. King Leech can't understand why the guy spent so much time in this place. Doro was also puzzled, for this was not their main destination. Jizik explained to them that it was fun, and they had a great time there. Also, they had made a lot of new friends. King Leech thought about Jisok's words. Pigatik would like this adventure to be enjoyable as well. Jizik will try to make it so, and indeed they had a wonderful time on the road, evenings sitting by the fire, walking in the fresh air. Eventually, they successfully reached the mine. As they approached the entrance, they noticed large support beams. The entire passageway was illuminated with red miners' lamps. It was quite a spectacular place at first glance. Okay, that's all well and good, but where are the dwarves? According to the Leech King's latest recollection, there had been no word from the dwarves in the mine for quite some time. Jizik was shocked by what he heard. Since a certain day, the dwarves have stopped coming out of the mine. Among those who went to the mine to find out what happened, no one returned. Doro panicked as to why the Lich hadn't told this earlier. The undead king replied that he hadn't been asked about it. While the group is thinking about what they should do now, someone is watching them from above. Suddenly, Jizik notices two people attacking him from long range. Doro and Leech fend off an attack by strangers. Bright red eyes stare at them and wonder. Jizik asks Pigatik to check what's going on there. Leech is happy to accomplish the task at hand, seeing the King of the Dead aggressively rushing into the fight. Jizik asks that they not be killed, but simply captured. Lich gives two strong slaps to the two dwarves. Jizik got a good look at the attackers. They're the guys they're looking for. The guy thought it was strange that dwarves were being quite aggressive. Were they always like this? Walking up to one of them, the guy started to bring him to his senses after regaining consciousness. The dwarf advised the strangers to get their feet out of the place. All the dwarves in this mine right now have lost their minds and become violent. Anyone who enters the mine will be killed. After these words, the group decided to look around and notice the presence of a large number of hostile dwarves. So, if they were able to bring these two back to consciousness, there must be a way to do the same to the others. It's likely that the hard blows to the head brought them to their senses. Smiling slightly, the guy came up with a terrific idea. There is a very simple and effective way: physiotherapy. Jizik turns to the dwarves. He tries to provoke them into attacking and he succeeds. The dwarves are furious in desire battle. The fun begins, 3 against a whole family of dwarves. Lich immediately resorts to using his magical skills. He releases multiple clots of dark energy towards the approaching army of opponents. Doro is like a real head crab getting into the heads of little old men. And Jizik is throwing his resistance group left and right using his mechanical fists. It seemed like a very exciting endeavor. No sooner had the guy told everyone to keep their guard up than he opened his own back to attack. Jizik spotted his attacker and beat back his onslaught. At the same moment he was helped by the Lich King. The guy hadn't expected to see Lich next to him. They missed each other, and the guy said he could have done it alone. Lich doesn't have an ounce of doubt about that. It was just a fluke. Watching what was going on, the first dwarf who woke up asked not to make so much noise. A noise like that could wake up a real monster. Suddenly a huge bony paw breaks through the walls of the mine. At that very second, everyone around him froze in surprise. The dormant beast has awakened from its slumber. No one has ever met this creature before. Not even Dora, who knows all the big monsters. Well, things have taken a completely different turn. Now they'll have to fight a more powerful opponent than a bunch of crazy pensioners. Jizik and Dora retreat to a safe distance to come up with a new plan. It was one revived by a curse, zombie dragon. You can personally read further information in the pop-up window. If this function is not supported, my condolences. The monster doesn't give you a chance to prepare an attack sharply. For unknown reasons, the zombie dragon only chases Jisoka. Dora was very glad that this time he doesn't have to be a tester and lure the monster onto himself. We need to do something urgently, because the situation is going off the deep end. Jizik makes a dash for it and calls for Grantaris. Grantaris has an opportunity to prove that he's not as useless as he's made out to be. The hostile monster is ready for battle, so the battle of the giants is about to begin. Each opponent looks intimidating, but Grantaris isn't used to being looked down upon. He turns on his engine and tries to gain altitude to continue the battle of looks. With a sudden movement, the zombie dragon shoots down the propeller and thus lands ahead on the ground. The monster grabs the head of Grantarus with his paws. It seems this fight will end in defeat for the Green Man. Dora can't control Grantarus. His movements are stiff. He needs his body now. Jizik hears Dora's request, but he doesn't know how he can help yet, as he doesn't have the resources he needs. Suddenly, the guy remembers one interesting feature. He can create something like this out of bones. Abruptly, a strong glow appears where Grantarus's head was. The zombie dragon continues to just stare at the flash of light with incomprehension of what is happening. The monster saw something incredible in front of him. Jizik has once again created an object using the Bone Maker skill. This time it's a legendary creature, and the number of stars is impressive. A huge skull Grantarus of incredibly dangerous level appeared in front of the poor zombie dragon. After from fear or confidence, the monster let out a piercing scream. Grantarus made a head-on attack with his head. The monster immediately lost consciousness. After which, Bone Grantarus tossed his opponent high above him with his tail. Jizik keeps a close eye on the situation, and orders that this monster be finished. Grantarus raises his head and opens his maw wide. He gathers enough energy for a final attack. Skulmahapo. A direct hit on the enemy. The power of such an attack practically vaporizes the zombie dragon. The beam continues to destroy everything in its path. Everyone is looking at this incredible sight. Of those present, clearly no one has ever seen anything like this before. Jizik is also satisfied. Perhaps this monster was the reason for all those mysterious disappearances. There were spectators gathered outside as well. They were also looking at the huge pillar of energy nailing the ancient mountain across. One of them thinks that by the looks of it, they've managed to beat him. What will they do now? The gray-haired man asked his teacher. The man pulled out a piece of paper and crumpled it up. It was a really good question. The contract was no longer valid and the man threw it away. This man is a shark named Hartheater and his assistant is Rome. Looks like they should get in touch with some idiot now. Soon the noise in the nail when mine subsided. The dwarves who had come to their senses began to celebrate their long-awaited release as they approached the eye of the defeated zombie dragon. They couldn't believe that they were ruled by someone like him. This is so humiliating. While the palaces were inspecting the monster's remains, Jizik asked Doro if he had found anything interesting, saying that it was empty. The little beast man remarked that something strange was going on here. There wasn't supposed to be a monster here that he didn't know about. This is the first time he's ever seen this one. Then one of the dwarves told me that the creature had suddenly appeared in the mine one day, saying that rumors had reached him as if these guys had saved them. The minekeeper Kim thanked them wholeheartedly. After shaking hands, King Jizik and the green-bearded dwarf introduced themselves to each other. Seizing the perfect moment, the main character asked the minekeeper something. Handing the old man his shovel, he inquired about the material it was made of. When the elderly dwarf took the item in his hands, everyone immediately realized he was a true master of his craft. This texture, these curves, he instantly analyzed the essence of this marvelous little thing. The answer he gave to the question shocked everyone present. He has no fucking clue what this shovel is or what it's made of. In truth, he really knows nothing about this mineral. He found it fascinating, so after saying goodbye to his rescuers, Kim decided to get away with the shovel. Only after a while, realizing what this old geezer was about to do, Jizik grabbed him by the beard in a rage and shouted at him not to rush off like that. After a while, King Jizik demonstrated to the dwarves the capabilities of this shovel. After building a tall fountain in the shape of a zombie dragon, he lifted the shovel up and once again asked if anyone knew what the mineral was. The minekeeper replied again that he had absolutely no idea, but he still wouldn't mind accepting the thing as a gift. Letting his words pass his ears, Jizik wondered what he should do next. He still wanted to know what his weapons were made of, so he asked the Lich King if he knew where the best place to get information was in the other world. Pagudik in turn advised to go to the launch plaza. Since that's where users first start the game, there's likely a lot more different information there as well. However, Jizik was surprised by the fact that there was a launching pad in this world. He himself first appeared in the middle of the field. Then where did this initial city come from? Rim, has that idiot arrived yet? Hardheater asked his assistant, strolling through the marketplace of the launch plaza. Following him, Rim narrated that the idiot had promised to come after he completed all his tasks. Their conversation was interrupted by someone's shouts that drew the entire crowd, showing people a leaflet with the head of a mechanized kite drawn on it. The guy asked everyone to listen carefully. Joachim told the audience that this monster was incredibly strong. If left to its own devices, this creature will turn another world into a wasteland. For the others, hearing the Joachim squad asking for help was a surprise. In this case, the matter is really serious. The whole spectacle amused Lone Shark. As he walked along the line of knights, he noticed that everyone was quite energetic today. At the same moment, he heard a familiar voice. "Joachim, are you sure about this?" The woman playfully inquired. "If it's as you say, fighting this monster is sure to be extremely fun." As soon as the woman said this, the ranks of knights came into motion. Everyone in the square immediately recognized the pattern on the soldiers' armor. Now the royal palace guards were pacing in front. The members of the Divine Guild gathered here. In addition to them, red-clothed warriors were also striding through the square. Their red cloaks with white crosses let people know that an elite group of 10 strongest holy knights had arrived here. This is the Crossing the Line Guild. A group of the strongest mages of the royal court were also not left out. They belonged to the Holy Land Guild. Valbinden, the Guild of Righteous Thieves, has also taken its place. And to complete this whole parade, the strongest organization of the other world has arrived. The Guild of Justice. The gathering of all 5 guilds in one place form a new structure. The World Guild Alliance is another world branch. The current commander of this organization is Ms. Hawk. The speech of Joachim and his troop caught her attention. And so Joachim will have to escort Ms. Hawk and the World Guild to the place where this monster appeared right now. At the same time, somewhere in the Nelwyn mine, King Jizik warned his partner that he needed to log off now to take a short break. When he returns, he plans to go straight to the launch pad. Calling Kim over to him, the lad asked if he could see to things at the mine in his absence. The elderly dwarf warned that he would probably be drinking and idling for the time they had been living under the monster's oppression. Saying he was hopeless, Doro asked the dwarf what he had in his backpack. That's when Kim pulled out diamondium and narrated that he was going to sell it in the plaza. And it's Jizik who will get the biggest percentage of that deal. Naturally, this is in gratitude for rescuing the dwarves from imprisonment. Having negotiated with the keeper of the mine, the protagonist left the game. He left the undead king in charge of the safety of old Kim and the diamondium. Before Jizik finally disappeared from the game world, all the dwarves bid him a warm farewell. Waving at them too, he smiled and promised to return as soon as possible. System alert, you have been logged out of the game. King Jizik with the same smile on his face was lying on his bed with his hand raised. Back in reality, he slowly lifted the VR headset goggles. For a while longer, he just lay there, staring at the ceiling with a disgruntled expression. Every time he comes back from a game, reality hits him hard. After sitting for a while longer, the boy felt very hungry. After making himself a carry, he sat down at the table and turned on the news. As usual, Chronolife. Another world has been at the top of the popularity charts in the media. News reports said the rare material, which is experiencing a shortage, recently caused a worldwide stir. This mineral is called diamondium. Diamondium had not been on the market for a month. Due to the great trading point, the price was set at 10 times the original price. Hearing such news, Jizik remembered that this was the ore that old man Kim was going to sell. Well, in that case, the guy's gonna make a little more money than he expected. As soon as he thought about it, the news announced that the current market price of diamondium was 100 million won per kilogram. Out of surprise, the guy even spit out the carry he had just put in his mouth. He didn't even realize that all this time, he was literally sitting on a mountain of gold. Meanwhile, in the small guest house of the initial town, Rome was really pissed off at the fact that this idiot was so badly late. What if he doesn't show up at all? However, Heart Heater is confident that he's definitely coming because he hates losing more than he hates death. Still, this idiot is the #1 idiot in the world. Oh dear, not very gentlemanly is it? Lone Shark suddenly muttered with a smile. At the same time, some kind of rumbling sound was heard in the center of the initial city. System alert, connecting to another world. After this announcement, the silhouette of an unknown warrior began to form right in the center of the crowded square. This person is #1 by the definition of the system. His golden armor, red hair, and crown with a purple stone on his head. All these distinctive features make it stand out from the gray mass. The best hardcore leveling warrior is back. A short while later, the guest house. Smiling good naturally, Lone Shark remarked that it had been a while since they had seen each other. Agreeing with him, the hardcore leveling warrior asked Heart Heater how he was doing. Rumors had recently reached him that the zombie dragon had died. Hardcore warrior would like to deal with it himself. But it seems to be too late. While Rem irritably poured tea for his guest, Heart Heater started talking about that boy who killed the zombie dragon. He seems to have taken possession of the Nelwyn mine after this fight. After pounding Rem, the hardcore warrior asked to move closer to the action. Are you going to send me to eliminate him? He asked, taking an epic sip of his tea, before collapsing to the floor and screaming in pain from his tongue burned by the hot drink. Meanwhile, tossing some kind of sheet at the guy lying on the floor, Heart Heater asked if he would accept the new request. The leaf fell right on the hardcore leveling warrior's face. His mission will be to find whoever took possession of the Nelwyn mine in the gloomy highlands. The hardcore warrior will then have to do what is spelled out in the contract condition. At the same time in the Nelwyn mine, suddenly, the master of these lands was back in the game. But why so fast? It hasn't even been a couple hours. Just by appearing in the other world, King Gasak said that they should hurry up. Today their path is to the starting plaza. Old man Kim wasn't expecting the guy to come at all either. And so he came out to him in his afternoon nap outfit. Excited by what he had recently heard on the news, Gasak asked the dwarf if Diamondium was all right. Everything was ready to go. And so the guy announced that they were leaving now. No one understood what the rush was for. Gasak had once again left his loyal Lich King in charge of the mine. He chose the smartest and strongest guard to guard such an important strategic facility. Noticing that the gentleman was somehow in too much of a hurry, Pagutik remarked that apparently the price of Diamondium was quite high. After all, they are next to a dark highland. Everyone knows that Diamondium does not occur very often, even in such mineral-rich places. That was why the undead king reminded him that it might not be safe to deliver so many valuable materials. Not only do you need good security, but you also need a reliable means of transportation. After pondering what they would use to transport such a pile of Diamondium, the Lich and his master came to a consensus. A couple of minutes later, the entire expedition was seated in the improvised vehicle created from Grand Tourist's head. Pagutik's idea turned out to be quite ingenious. They simply detached the head, thereby solving all security problems. In addition, this means of transportation is not only convenient but also quite fast. And while Gasak was proudly praising Grand Tourist, the sound of a bowstring was heard nearby. The arrow flew out at a tremendous speed, after which it pierced the wheel of the machine. The impact was so powerful that it threw Grand Tourist up, putting Gasak and everyone riding along with him into a stupor. The World Guild's army became visible on the nearest hilltop, and the one who fired that unfortunate arrow was Ms. Hawk. Grand Tourist found himself surrounded in an open area. For Hawk, it was the perfect setting to begin his performance. Aiming an arrow with TNT strapped to it at the sky, the woman announced a full attack. As soon as she released the bowstring, a bright red flash appeared in the sky. This turned out to be the signal for the rest of the troops. The Divine Guild, led by its commander, took on a melee attack. The Crossing the Line Guild squad with Mad Su Yang and the Vanguard will act as support. And of course, to create a surprise effect, the monster will also be attacked from the sky. Babidi Boo and his Holy Land Guild will take care of it. And why these dudes came here, I have no idea. After giving orders to most of the troops, Ms. Hawk also rushed into battle along with the men from her guild. The alliance of world guilds had completely surrounded Grand Tourists. Looking out the window of his car, Jizik, can you figure out who these guys were? It doesn't matter anymore though. Without intending to look into it, the guy activated the mecha beam. However, Ms. Hawk expected such an action. Before Grand Tourists attacked, the woman ordered to proceed with Plan A. The women are a migrant. Because of this, all of the soldiers managed to dodge and counterattack. Is it true that guild commanders were not left out and rushed to the front lines? After seeing Babidi Boo from above, some of the information about the monster converged with the report of the players who encountered it. By the way, the loser Yoahim is also present in a battle. Running out in front of all the commanders and squads, he jumped right onto the Grand Tourist's hull. He swung his sword so hard as he could, he tried to pierce the eye. When the blade made contact with the eye, there was a suspicious clinking of glass. After failing to pierce the eye of the enemy, Yoahim noticed the silhouette of some person on the other side of the eye. Pressing himself close to the glass, Jizik began to stare at the dude with hatred. He then swung the glass compartment of the Grand Tourist open sharply, slamming Yoahim into the hull of the giant machine. Then he swung the glass compartment of the Grand Tourist. Seeing a player like them, the World Guild army froze. "You damn thieves!" King Jizik roared in angry anger. When putting his foot up, he yelled louder that there was no way he was giving him his diamondium. At the same moment, a huge mechanical foot emerged from under the Grand Tourist's head. When the guy started kicking the hull of the machine, the mechanical foot, repeating the movements behind him, began to trample the enemies one by one, still not knowing what was going on here. The commanders and their troops tried to escape the battlefield. However, the general panic was averted by the head of the Thieves' Guild. The soldiers and their commanders were stunned when they saw a player. They didn't know if he was friend or foe, so they hesitated. "I've never been able to." Now, however, it has become gentle. That bastard had attacked them, and therefore officially became their enemy. Why? Very quickly, the guild heads gathered their thoughts. Together, they rushed into a combined attack, supporting each other and quickly closing the distance with the target. Is it true? When Jizik thought it was all over, an unfamiliar voice was heard. First sword-wielding style, a flash of moonlight. After uttering those words, the hardcore leveling warrior chopped up most of the World Guild soldiers on the field. The hardcore leveling warrior has a good reputation. Looking at such a performance, Jizik and the others froze in amazement. The black-haired swordsman has already landed beside him. As a stranger approached him, he asked if he was the guy with the shovel who had taken over the mine. When looking at the red-haired suspiciously, Jizik asked what if he was right. When striking his shovel with his sword, the hardcore leveling warrior spoke out. "Dear customer, let me escort you safely?" That's it for today. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more awesome manhwa content.